Hey there, guys. Got a question regarding shoulder health, overhead barbell press versus bench press, and do I think the bench press is more damaging for the shoulders? Um, this is an interesting question because, typically the individuals that go really heavy with any form of overhead work, like weightlifting and the rest of it, versus powerlifting, the mentality at the start of their training career is very, very different. So most individuals, they see squat, bench, and deadlift, and they think, yes, I can go ahead and I can do those movements. They're relatively simple. Versus you'll see a lot of people, if they want to get into weightlifting, they need to really learn how to do that movement, and they go and seek a coach. Now, it's the aspect of a coach which is going to determine the health of your shoulders long term, and same is true with powerlifting. A lot of powerlifters will hurt their shoulders in the early years. They simply just don't know how to train, don't know how to program, but they don't know the correct technique. So, and you'll see it at the gyms all the time. You'll see individuals when they bench press, their elbows are flared right out to the side. So they're in this position at the base of the movement. It's this position that damages the shoulders, or has a very high rate of or likelihood of damaging the shoulders versus tucking your elbows into the side and then pressing. So if you're taught by a powerlifting coach, chances are you're going to have that problem addressed before it ever becomes an issue, and you're going to learn how to, tuck your elbows at the base of the movement, put your shoulders in a much better and safer position to press from. Because you also think back to, body mechanics and the rest of it. If you're going to throw a punch, you're not going to throw a punch with your elbow all the way up here. There's very little power. It's just not a good way. You're going to tuck it into the side and you get a lot more drive. Same carries, with the bench press. So you're going to have small little things like that adjusted. You'll also learn how to, retract your scapula, have your chest higher up. The higher your chest is up, the lower, the end of your elbow has to travel past, the flat part of the bench. So, that's going to take away, range of movement, but it's also going to help protect your shoulder. And just, setting up correctly. Then we look at weightlifting, and chances are a lot of those individuals have had a coach from the get-go. They've been taught how to catch the weight, how to shoulder press, where to press to. They will have done, go through different mobility exercises and everything they need in order to become a proficient athlete in their sport. So the risk of shoulder damage for both, weightlifting and powerlifting, I'd say the risk is relatively the same, provided they were both given a coach from the get-go. If there was no coach, then a lot more people ego lift with the bench press. It's easier to grind out reps and so forth. So your rate of injury will generally, yes, be a lot higher on the bench press. The heavy overhead work, most of the people that have got to those weights understand how to move them. It's not like your everyday, gym bro that can lift really, really heavy. They sort of hit, maybe if they're lucky, up around that 2 plate mark, and then injuries start to set in. Versus people that are pressing well above that, it's either strongman, weightlifting, or powerlifters that know what they're doing. Occasionally, you'll see bodybuilders in there as well, but they could be, overhead pressing on a Smith machine where range of motion is a little bit different again. So a lot of it comes down to, technique. A lot of overhead work, if you're doing it properly, you're going to do a lot of the smaller, exercises to help with, scapular stability under load. So for me, one of my big ones is the one arm shoulder press, or using the stone and pressing with one hand. And again, that's just for stability under load. Challenge the rotator cuff a little bit. And another thing, a lot of gym bros, especially when they get into powerlifting and other things, they'll heavily focus on bench press. They will neglect a lot of back work. And having a strong back helps set you very well on the bench press. A strong back is also going to help set the foundation for a strong overhead press, but it's not as important compared to the bench press, being if your chest is really strong and tight and you're getting pulled, your shoulders rounding in, you're having a lot of internal rotation going on, that's going to heavily affect the way you bench press, and your rate of injury skyrockets. versus if you did a lot of overhead pressing, you're going to end up with just very strong delts. You'll have more strength in the anterior delt, but your upper back as a whole is still going to get a decent workout from a stability aspect. So you're still going to have a strong upper back. You're going to still be training that mid back region, and then your scapula under load. They're far more supported. Bench press, you don't have that exact same luxury. It takes time to learn. So, if you're benching and neglecting back work, well, yeah, you can definitely end up injured. If you're overhead pressing and you neglect back work, chances are you won't end up injured or anywhere near as injured as the individual that just does powerlifting. So you need to have a look at those sort of things because that makes a very, very big difference. And then long term, again, you have the supplement side of things. Weightlifting is tested. A lot of elite powerlifting isn't. So, you've got different mentalities going through as well. And that plays a very big, role in terms of career success, as well as, just how you perceive your sport, what you're going to do to look after yourself, what you're going to do for balance. A lot of individuals that start powerlifting, it's just because it's an easier sport to get into, similar to strongman, and they just enjoy lifting. Weightlifting requires a little bit more discipline in terms of technique. People can get away with a very sloppy bench press, but you can't get away really with very poor form in weightlifting. Otherwise, it's just going to heavily affect, how you catch the bar and the rest of it. And again, most of those individuals have been coached or shown by someone who really understands what they're doing, as opposed to, an older sibling going, hey mate, let's go to the gym and we'll hit some, bench and do some squats. Like, just because the movements are easy to do doesn't mean you should necessarily, just follow their lead. They may not know what they're doing at all. So keep that in mind. And that's sort of my argument for, is heavy bench press bad for the shoulders? Is heavy overhead, bad for the shoulders? For me, as I said, it just comes down to the coach. And if you were lucky enough to have a coach at the start, if you have good technique, then risk of injury, like anything, is relatively quite low. Humans aren't designed to be fragile creatures. Poor form and lack of corrective exercise is what will get you hurt. If you guys have any further questions, feel free to comment below. Otherwise, have a great day wherever you are.